Hello, recappers. Today's movie starts with a couple kissing passionately. As the man throws the woman onto the bed, they are suddenly interrupted by the woman's young son. He walks in, holding a dead mouse and smiling. The woman screams. In the next scene, a family of 3 is at a boatyard getting their boat ready. The woman, named Laura, talks about wanting to fix up her kitchen, but her husband doesn't seem very interested. She tells their son to be careful with a knife. Then her husband gets a phone call and walks away. Nearby, a man is watching Laura closely. As she pushes a cart, she slips and nearly falls, but the man quickly steps in and helps her. After he leaves, Laura's husband comes back and gives her a newspaper. The front page talks about a fire on Denton Island. Later, their son Jamie slips and falls into the water. The same man jumps in and saves him, bringing him back to his parents. He introduces himself as Elliot. The family thanks him and invites him to dinner. That night, Laura talks to her best friend Mira about Elliot. She seems very impressed by how fit and attractive he is. Later on, they invite Elliot into the house for dinner. He notices one of Laura's paintings and really admires it. Laura tells him she used to sell her art, but her husband, Greg, turned her art studio into a workshed. Meanwhile, Greg is on the phone with his secretary, and it seems like he's flirting with her. Elliot then offers to help with their kitchen renovation at a discounted price, and the family agrees. The next day, while Laura is jogging with Mira, they talk about how handsome Elliot is. When Laura gets home, she sees Elliot shirtless, working in the yard. As he explains the renovation plans, Laura can't stop staring at his body. She runs upstairs to take a shower. While she's in the bathroom, Elliot silently walks past her room. Later, Laura visits the market to buy kitchen items. Elliot appears and compliments her design choices, then offers her a surprise. He makes her close her eyes and taste a delicious cannoli and juice, explaining it's from a bakery called Leodicea that he used to visit with his mother. Back at home, Mira arrives and sees Elliot working shirtless. She is also fascinated and starts asking him questions about his love life. He says he doesn't have a girlfriend but has his eye on someone. Later, Laura and Elliot go to the boatyard to check for signs of a break-in. Laura finds a pair of purple panties under a cushion and becomes emotional. Elliot asks what's wrong, and she shows him the underwear, suspecting they belong to Hannah, Greg's secretary. She checks Hannah's dating profile and confirms the suspicion. Devastated, she cries. Elliot takes her to his boat and offers her coffee, encouraging her to move on. They seem to share a moment of chemistry as Laura leaves, smiling. We then see Elliot crying as he looks at photos of his mother. In the next scene, Laura questions Greg about where he was the previous night. He claims he was at work and had called Hannah to take notes. When Greg tries to get close to her, Laura pushes him away. The next morning, Elliot arrives with renovation supplies. Laura returns from jogging and finds Jamie chatting with him. Elliot seems great with kids. Laura then asks him to join Mira and Charlie while she takes a shower. Elliot follows her into the bathroom and joins her in the shower. He undresses, Laura consents, and they start making out passionately. In the next scene, Laura is at the boatyard and sees several couples embracing. She later talks to Greg, who explains that teenagers often sneak into boats for romantic encounters. When Laura mentions the purple panties, Greg brushes it off, saying they probably belong to one of those teenagers. Laura is stunned when Greg hugs her and confesses his love. Meanwhile, Elliot plays with Jamie in the yard. Laura tells Jamie to go play with Charlie, then pulls Elliot aside and says they need to stop whatever's going on between them. Instead of listening, Elliot tries to seduce her again. Laura initially resists but eventually gives in. Later, Elliot is seen in his boat, cutting Greg's face out of Laura's photos and replacing it with his own, in an increasingly disturbing manner. The next day, he brings Laura yellow roses for her birthday, claiming he knows everything about her. Laura looks confused. When Greg arrives and sees the roses, Laura's favorite, he is surprised. He then leaves for work. Elliot enters the house, and Laura scolds him for his behavior. She tells him she was wrong about Greg and can't continue the affair. She asks him to leave and not return. Elliot begins trembling with grief as the scene fades. Afterward, Laura tells Jamie, there is no Elliot anymore. However, we then see Elliot still lurking in the yard, stalking her. Later, Laura dresses up and goes outside, where a group of people surprises her with a birthday party. She thanks them and kisses her husband while Elliot watches from afar. Hannah shows up and tells Laura how excited Greg was to plan the party. He had Hannah work late to ensure everything went perfectly. Greg introduces Elliot to Hannah, who eyes him seductively. Elliot, however, can't stop looking at Laura. He excuses himself, but the women follow. Hannah tries to speak to him, but he barely responds, still focused on Laura. After the party, Hannah chases after Elliot and asks him to take her with him. Meanwhile, Laura is in bed with Greg and decides to confess what happened with Elliot. Greg stops her, telling her she is amazing, complimenting her until they fall into romance. Elliot, on the other hand, takes Hannah to his boat. She throws herself at him, but he shows no interest. Realizing this, she gets annoyed and prepares to leave, only to discover Laura's pictures all over the wall. She accuses him of being a creep, and Elliot strangles her from behind. The next morning, Laura is watering the plants when Greg arrives and says sweet things to her. He promises that once the trip is over, they'll have more time together, and they kiss. Inside the house, Elliot watches them with burning jealousy. Laura then goes to the work shed and finds that it has been turned into a studio. She sees canvases scattered all around, but on each one, Elliot and Laura Forever is written. Laura is bewildered by the sight. Suddenly, she hears Jamie scream. She rushes to the yard, where he tells her that Elliot was there. Laura immediately runs outside and confronts Elliot. She tells him to leave them alone and stop with the surprises. Elliot is clearly obsessed with her and insists that she and Greg are finished. His obsession quickly escalates into aggressive behavior. He grabs her forcefully. Laura screams, and Jamie witnesses everything. Seeing Jamie, Elliot lets go of Laura and leaves. That night, Laura visits Elliot's website and reads reviews about his work. She comes across a disturbing comment from a user named Purple Wallflower, claiming that Elliot destroyed her life. The next morning, Laura travels to Denton Island and visits a shop. She asks the owner about the Purple Wallflower. The shopkeeper tells her about a woman named Willie Hamill and gives Laura her address. When Laura visits Willie, the woman reveals that Elliot ruined her life, her marriage, her family. She warns Laura that Elliot is dangerous and urges her to look into what he did to his own mother. In the next scene, Hannah's body is found floating in the water. Mira and Bill see the news report on TV and try to call Greg. Just as Greg is about to answer, Elliot appears behind him, and the scene fades out. Meanwhile, Laura wakes up terrified. She grabs a baseball bat and heads downstairs, hearing strange noises and the sound of things breaking. In the kitchen, she finds the same cannoli Elliot once made her taste, and a window frame that has been completely smashed. In the next scene, Greg is seen tied to a pole on the boat. He manages to break free and tries to escape, but Elliot hits him. Back at home, Laura confides in Mira, expressing her fear about Greg's disappearance. She admits she had an affair with Elliot and that he is now completely obsessed with her. Mira warns her to be extremely careful. Laura then visits the bakery and speaks to an elderly woman at the counter. On the wall, Laura sees a memory display with photo frames. The old woman tells her about Elliot, how he used to come there with his mother as a child. She explains that Elliot's mother had an unfaithful husband, which deeply affected Elliot and shaped who he is today. Things turned worse when Elliot burned down their house. Laura listens, horrified. As she's about to leave, the woman mentions that Elliot came in that morning and said he was going to marry a widow and become a stepfather. Terrified, Laura rushes home, and to her horror, finds Elliot waiting for her. She demands to know Greg's whereabouts, but Elliot grows violent and starts physically assaulting her. Jamie walks in, but Elliot sends him away. He then drags Laura to the bedroom, ties her up, but she eventually manages to break free. Pretending to love him, she tells Elliot she now realizes how much she loves him. Elliot believes Laura when she pretends to love him, so he unties her. They go downstairs to have dinner. Jamie is tied up nearby, but Laura tells him to stay calm and act normal. Just then, Mira and Bill arrive. Laura tries to go toward the window to get help, but Elliot sees her and takes both Laura and Jamie upstairs. Elliot sends Jamie outside so he can be alone with Laura. Laura tries to escape, but Elliot forces her onto the bed and starts to attack her. Just then, Jamie comes back into the room. Elliot suddenly remembers something painful from his childhood and becomes confused. Laura uses this chance to hit him and run away. She tells Jamie to run and save himself. Elliot wakes up a moment later and comes after Laura again. He throws her to the floor and hits her on the head with a hammer. Next, we see Elliot carrying a big bag with a body inside to the boat. But Laura is still alive. She cuts the bag open with a knife and runs. She finds Elliot and stabs him, then escapes. Following a trail of blood, she finds Greg, who is unconscious. She tries to call the Coast Guard, but the call doesn't go through. Elliot wakes up and chases Laura again. He catches her in a room upstairs. Luckily, there's a window. Laura pushes him out the window. He falls, hits his head, and dies. In the final scene, Laura is safe and happy with her family again. She opens the fridge and is surprised to find a cannoli. Greg brought it for her. And that's how our story ends. What did you think about the ending? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this recap, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss our next breakdown.